Hi. Ever have one of those days? As many of you know, I keep a fairly busy schedule, and I've been so focused on the new life skills course that I'm creating, I looked up this morning and realized that it was time to release episode number 4. Thankfully, I plan ahead. I hope you enjoy this episode on emotions and emotional intelligence. Hi, this is Jill. Welcome to the Life After podcast, where we talk about moving from surviving to thriving. This podcast is for anyone who wants to learn, grow, to get tips and tricks about how to inspire you to become the person you want to be, and get clarity about exactly what you want in life. This is also the place to be if you want to be lifted up and encouraged to go out and do great work in the world. What has happened in your past does not have to define who you are today or who you become in the future. And in fact, what has happened to you in the past should, can, and will shape who you want to be. This podcast is also about bringing people together. It's about connecting all of you, helping you identify where you are in your process. What do you need to feel more engaged and alive in your life? More connected to the people in your circle? This is a community of those who are looking to improve our world in the way that is most meaningful to them. Why is this important? Because how we show up really matters. Bringing more service, kindness, and love into the world is critical right now. Our quotes for this episode are, emotions are energy. Energy wants to move. When stuck emotions cause stress, it's the energy asking you to help move it. Author unknown. True emotional healing doesn't happen without feeling. The only way out is through. Jessica Moore. We cannot selectively numb emotions. When we numb the painful emotions, we also numb the positive emotions. Brene Brown. I don't want to be at the mercy of my emotions. I want to use them, to enjoy them, and to dominate them. Oscar Wilde. The idea that you have to be protected from any kind of uncomfortable emotion is what I absolutely do not subscribe to. John Cleese. And finally, your emotions make you human. Even the unpleasant ones have a purpose. Don't lock them away. If you ignore them, they just get louder and angrier. Sabaa Tahir. In this episode, we are going to talk about emotions. Emotions have power, and we're going to talk about how to harness that power to get the most fulfillment we can in our lives. Stick around. This episode is helpful, useful, and informative. Last season, episode 6 was about the mind-body connection. And in that episode, we talked about the difference between emotions and feelings. And admittedly, it was a little clunky. So I wanted to revisit the relationship between emotions and feelings and come back to the important concept around how much our emotions matter. Let's recap a little from episode 6. What complicates any discussions on emotions and feelings is that there is no scientific consensus on a definition of emotion. The American Psychological Association defines emotions as, quote, conscious mental reactions that are typically accompanied by physiological and behavioral changes in the body. End quote. Emotions are further complicated as they are impacted by mood, temperament, creativity, personality, and general disposition. Emotions are also associated with thoughts, feelings, and behavioral responses. Whew, that is a lot. Emotions are always present and are a reaction to present reality. They are automatic, All emotions are meaningful and healthy until we're taught or conditioned to not deal with, or rather to squash them. Unfortunately, we're so often taught as kids to ignore our normal, healthy emotions. Now, ignoring or suppressing our emotions can lead to toxic behaviors, addiction, physical pain, and poor mental health. Psychologists Paul Ekman and Wallace Friesen have determined there are 6 universal emotions: happiness, sadness, fear, disgust, anger, and surprise. Other psychologists and neuroscientists would add trust and anticipation to that fundamental emotions wheel. Now, feelings, however, are more specific, and they tend to be conscious to us and happen more quickly because they're reactions to emotional stimuli. Feelings are our perception of our bodily changes. Feelings are how we interpret emotions. They are a learned response to an emotional trigger. So clear as mud, right? Now, the terms emotion and feeling are often used interchangeably. However, as you can see, they are not the same thing. It's important to be able to distinguish between our emotions and feelings because they really do have different roles or functions in our lives. I did a fair bit of research on this because while it seems so simple on paper, it's actually quite hard to explain in clear, concise terms. This is the best explanation I found so far. Carla McLaren says it fairly well in her blog, Is It a Feeling or Is It an Emotion? And of course, I'll link all the articles in the show notes. So her explanation is, an emotion is a physiological experience or state of awareness that gives you information about the world, and a feeling is your conscious awareness of the emotion itself. A metaphor that Rachel Allen in Psychology Today uses to clarify that is our feelings are the frame of the car and our emotions are the engine. The key is to know that we have to keep the engine running and healthy or the car won't run properly, regardless of how good it might look on the outside. Sometimes, often, we don't have a feeling associated with our emotions, or there's a disconnect between the emotion and the feeling, or we don't know we've got the emotion and therefore are unclear about the feeling. These are all places where it can go sideways for us. With that car metaphor, one thing becomes really clear, and that's emotions function in ways that our feelings do not. According to Happier Humans, emotions are psychological reactions. They trigger physiological responses. They can create a range of feelings, influence behavior, are short-lived, affect mental health, and can exist on their own. Obviously, our emotions play a big role in our lives, and therefore, it's super important to have this understanding. When you aren't aware of your emotions, it can cause serious issues in your life. Many years ago, I read the book Emotional Intelligence by Daniel Goleman. It was so eye-opening and informative, and I highly recommend it. Current views on emotional intelligence means that you are able to both understand and manage your own emotions and are able to share them appropriately. This creates better relationships and is an antidote to depression and having a sense of isolation. Rachel Allen says that emotional intelligence also helps you to come back to the present moment, assess your needs, manage any reactivity, and engage in thoughtful decision-making. So what does all this mean? What can we actually do to improve our emotional states, which can, as we see based upon this relationship between emotions and feelings, can tweak our feelings if and when needed? So I've got a few tips and tricks. The first thing is to do is to acknowledge your emotions. This is where that understanding of the connection between your body and emotions can be key. You may have early success when you identify exactly what emotion you're experiencing by tapping into what your body is telling you. There's an exercise in episode 6 of season 1 about learning how to identify your physiological responses to the emotion you're experiencing. And I recommend you go back and listen to it. Try that exercise out, right? And the basis of that exercise is basically when you feel sad, how does sadness feel in your body? When you feel angry, how does anger feel in your body, right? And then you'll have the ability to identify those emotions more quickly when you're feeling them. One way to learn how to acknowledge your emotions is to write them down. And another is to talk them through with a trusted friend. Again, this gives you the ability to tap into understanding in those moments of having the emotions come up, what emotions exactly you may be feeling. Once you're able to acknowledge what your emotions are, accept them. Radical acceptance of your emotions allows you to process through them more quickly and easily. There are no bad emotions. All emotions happen for a reason. Ask yourself, why am I angry or sad or afraid? Getting clarity on what emotion you're experiencing and why will help you accept where you are with less effort and energy. This is a really great practice because when we reject our emotions, things so often get worse. Now, when you can acknowledge and accept your emotions, you will be far less likely to try to avoid or deny them. This is so important because avoiding our emotions often leads to serious consequences like addiction or mental health issues. Developing resilience is another successful way to manage our emotions. Check out the resilience episode, which is number 10 from last season, as well as episode number 3 on adversity for additional tips and tricks regarding building resilience. While expanding life skills into a course, I have added a module discussing the science of hope. And I also did an episode on hope from in season 1, which I think was episode number 14. I really recommend you go back and listen to it. People with higher levels of hope lead happier, more fulfilling lives. Hope is contagious and has a ripple effect. So when dealing with your emotions, hope is really pertinent. I'm always here to help. Please reach out to me if you would like some additional support, would like me to come speak to your organization or school, would like to be a guest on the show. There's a link in the show notes for how to reach me, or go to my website at locatecoaching.com. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to today's episode on emotions. Remember, the more that you know about your emotions, the more actively you can process, acknowledge, be aware of, and move through them. All of these skills will make life easier, more fulfilling, and much less stressful, as well as improve your relationships and connections to others. I appreciate you sharing these episodes. This podcast is a powerful resource for anyone that is looking to make changes in their lives. So please, please, please help me grow by sharing, liking, and subscribing. There will be new episodes on the second and fourth Wednesday every month. I promise that every episode I'm going to show up and help support you in your individual journey. I hope you have a fantastic day, and I'll see you soon.